as in the top left spawning as the red Terran player playing for Team Mouse is going to be the man also known as Big Gabe, HeRoMaRinE.
And his opponent, the blue Italian Zerg player, playing for Team Clash. It is Reynor.
Yes, Reynor it is indeed. Now, both players, as you mentioned, are, well, they're sharing a first place right now. Also completely equal in map score, if I'm not mistaken. Both players managed to 2-1 trap and 2-0 their other opponent. In HeRoMaRiNE's case, that was Astrea. In Reynor's case, that was Dream in the first series, which we also covered here on the C stream. And in that series, we saw an unleashed Reynor in ZVT, an early game that fantastic, wouldn't even quite cover it. That first game was so insanely good, and an understanding of the mid and late game that has been unrivaled almost of anything we've ever seen, and definitely what we've seen so far. I am Katowice, so I'm just insanely hyped to see how HeRoMaRiNE will deal with it. HeRoMaRiNE seems to be in a good mental state. He seems to be on fire, and sometimes it feels like that when HeRoMaRiNE is playing well on a day, that he really is playing well. You know, he isn't very inconsistent in his play level on a day, it often feels like. And don't forget that HeRoMaRiNE, last time these two clashed, managed to take out Reynor 3-1.
Yeah. This was obviously an EPT cap, and both of them already knew that they were playing against each other in the. I'm not sure if the group stage were already announced, but obviously both of them knew that they were qualified for Katowice. So it was relatively recent. I wouldn't read too much into it, but I do remember from those games that Gabe mostly did some tank timings, tank pushes. He opened on this same map. I believe he opened with the 3CC Blue Flame Hellion. This game, he's already doing something that's a little bit different. He went for a Marine first and then a factory right after. So a very, very early factory. This can lead into Hellbat timings, but also other builds that Björn popularized ever since he came back, where you make a bunch of extra Marines, and then you have basically a bunch of different follow-ups that you can go into, but usually you start with a Marine drop, Hellion move out.
Yeah, from what I've seen with this, usually it's the 7 Marine drop with 3 Hellions somewhere else, right? And you drop the 7 Marines. Well, first of all, you try to clear any Overlords that you can, and then you probably drop it in the main, see if you can maybe kill a drone here and there. How much do you actually need to do with a build like that? Is this very aggressive? Is this very invested?
It is very similar to, let's say, 6 Hellion and 2 starport units. So let's say 6 Hellion, 1 Liberator, or 6 Hellion Banshee. Very, very similar CC timings usually, unless you go for the very committed follow-ups that are possible. So you can go after the medevac into Banshee, for example, and go into a Hellbat push, since you already do have the medevac and the Marines for the extra DPS. But I really doubt that we're gonna see any of that, because Reynor opened with Overlord speed, very, very safe. He's saying, okay, as long as I don't fall too far behind in the early game, I should be fine. Loses an Overlord there, a little bit sloppy.
It's actually gonna supply block him there as well. Definitely wasn't according to plan, that Overlord. That wasn't supposed to be a sacrificial Overlord. That was just supposed to be a regular Overlord. Right now, we have that 7 Marine drop on the map that we mentioned before. There's 2 Hellions. Or am I missing a third one? No, there's 2 Hellions. And I think another Overlord's gonna go down here, Lambo.
Yeah, good catch by HeRoMaRiNE. You do need to watch out with the Overlords there, and he has Overlord speed, so these are mistakes that could be avoided. He also goes in for the follow-up scout, sees that there is no research on attack lab of the starport, so this is the Raven follow-up, something that I've only seen from Björn so far, but I know that HeRoMaRiNE also likes his Raven openers. So relatively passive opener, and I'm expecting Reynor to just drone up pretty much on the Zerg count that he's at right now.
All right. Well, what type of a drone count are we expecting here out of Reynor? Is this going to be going up to 58 or higher numbers? Are we thinking 66, 75? What are we kind of looking at? When is the first time that HeRoMaRiNE is going to able to start doing damage with perhaps a follow-up drop, or what are we looking at timing-wise?
Well, the first timing that you can hit afterwards is either a tank push or like a 3 medevac follow-up with a bunch of Marines. So up until that would probably hit around 7 minutes, and or like 640 or something if HeRoMaRiNE plays a very, very sharp build order. And I think you can go easily up to 70 drones and already start droning a little bit for your fort base even, which I'm assuming Reynor is going to take the top one in this scenario.
Right, and ideally you don't want to produce any extra links or more of any banelings before you hit that drone count, right? The earlier you get those drones, obviously the better. We see the fort base already going down, the creep spread once again looking magnificent 5 minutes and 36 seconds into the game. Even though HeRoMaRinE has been putting on a lot of pressure, Reynor is finding these opportunities to spread creep with his heavy queen oper. Now, very often we saw Zergs go up to 7 queens, and Reynor recently been going up to 8, 9. I've seen him go 10 as well. Is this a recent change, and what kind of triggered that?
I think honestly it started with the Icon games that we've been playing, because we always made a lot of Hellions, and we figured if I just make more queens I can still defend the creep spread. Now HeRoMaRinE is going in with a little bit of a stim timing, where he's just using the units that he already had. I'm not the biggest fan of this, to be honest, because he's losing a lot of Hellions that could be more useful later on. And unupgraded Marines with Stim without combat shields don't actually trade that well against Zerglings nor Queens, so he needs to retreat. And this is a drone count that I pretty much said, right? 70 drones before making extra Zerglings, so it's not like he slowed down Reynor at all as well. So maybe not the best for HeRoMaRinE, but what he wants, what he did accomplish with it is he slowed down the creep a little bit to the position where you usually want to tank push towards.
Right, which is this little ledge with those rocks. Very often I don't see Zergs actually take out these rocks. Is there not too much use for it, or are you just too busy in the early game?
Too busy in the early game. It definitely is a mistake at this point, when the Hellions are cleared up. You don't attack this rock. Clearing it makes the follow-up engagement a lot easier, and I would definitely suggest that everyone should do that. Now, Reynor still is on Lingbane only, but he also went up to a very, very high drone count. So this is the timing that HeRoMaRinE needs to start taking really good trades in.
Yeah, and he is ready for it with the upgrades. Combat Shield 1-1 finishing at around the same time. There were Hellions at home defending versus that run by. Reynor isn't done with it run by as he starts morphing in a couple of banelings in the middle of the map. The Marine count here doesn't quite seem high enough for HeRoMaRinE to just straight up trade with these queens. The tanks need to join in there. Oh, HeRoMaRinE sees the banelings morphing in the middle of the map, but doesn't respond, and that is a big mistake. It's gonna cost him 19 SCVs. So a small looking error actually is going to have huge consequences here, as now the rest of the army for Reynor is turning back and he's setting up a massive flank.
Yeah, HeRoMaRinE just wants to engage right now. He even went for the anti-armor missile with the Raven, so he is set up for the engagement. Good focus fire on initial banelings, but a lot of banelings flanking and great baneling split as well, which means that he buys time for his Zerglings to clear up the tanks, and absolute destruction for the third DBZ straight in a row from Reynor.
Yeah, Reynor looking absolutely unbeatable in this matchup at the moment. Doesn't matter what you throw him, you can open with a 3-Rex, you can throw him off a little bit, but he just, once he seems to be getting into that flow, it's almost impossible for Terran to do anything. His creep spread is insane, his counterattacks are on point, and I love that he realizes, okay, I've done enough damage to the third base. The units that I still have in the middle of the map, they kind of naturally transition into a flank for him, and the play that he's doing with these different groups just feels so natural and so fluid to him. He's very flexible as well with his decision making, and it's beautiful to see him play TVZ. But if you're a HeRoMaRinE fan here, that wasn't the greatest game to watch, because honestly that start wasn't too bad. He gets what, 2-3 free overlords, which, as you mentioned, are sloppy mistakes out of Reynor. We do have to make a note there, but then afterwards, I mean, Reynor just drones up to... He's just playing by the book, right? Like you mentioned, 75 workers, he gets 75. You say, well, I think a counterattack here would be good. He goes for a counterattack. And basically, the moment you play this close to theoretically perfect, it's just really difficult for Terran to be aggressive on the map like this. Like, Reynor is just absolutely on point. His scouting, his responses, his mechanics. And I'd love to see a Terran give him a run for his money, but so far we haven't quite seen that yet.
Yeah, we also so far saw every turn just attempt to go for tank pushes because of the turns that we've seen. I think a lot, you can play very, very differently against the style that Reynor is choosing, because Reynor just has like an optimal set of units to defend tank pushes, basically. He has so many queens with so much energy that can tank attacks, and then he has like the maximum amount of Lingbane because he delays his gases. So instead of just going straight for Widow Mines, the opponents right now are still opting for the tank pushes. This might be something that we could see the Terran players adjusting with later on in the tournaments if they can prepare.
Right, and you're not even necessarily speaking as we open the game number 2, by the way, you're not even necessarily speaking about that first push, right? But also about the follow-up. Like, you can still do a 2-tank push initially and then transition quicker into mines. Or are you really meaning, like, skip tanks altogether, straight into mines?
Probably skip tanks altogether would be a good idea, but yeah, in general, just making in general more than 2 tanks and committing with them usually just sets you behind if the Zerg plays perfectly, which the Reynor is getting close to.
Yes, scarily close to perfect indeed. As in the bottom right corner, the man that needs to switch it up a little bit if he wants to make a chance in this matchup against this player. It is going to be HeRoMaRinE.
And his opponent in the top left, he looked very, very convincing, especially in this matchup so far. It's the Italian stallion, Reynor.
Italian stallion, Reynor. Yeah, has been looking very, very good. Solid creep spread so far, every single game. The queen movement on point. And yeah, this can be different, of course. You can get outmaneuvered by Hellions. You can get outmaneuvered by all these little tricks that Terran have. The early game in ZVT is by no means easy, but Reynor makes it look easy. And that's a pretty impressive feat on itself. Now, Reynor sending the Overlord straight across the map, I guess kind of knowing that HeRoMaRinE doesn't really proxy Rex, right?
Yeah, never. I don't think I have seen HeRoMaRinE proxy Rex a single time. In TVZ, I think he just doesn't think that it is a good build order, but I think in general learning it would help him a lot, but you need a lot of knowledge when to kite, when you can take fights with the proxy Rex, which he doesn't have. So unless he had like some very, very secret practice, I think even if he thinks he's the underdog, he's rather going to do some later on cheese like Blue Flame or maybe even Battle Cruiser or something like that rather than proxy Rex.
Yeah, are we expecting something special out of HeRoMaRinE here? I remember before he used to always throw in at least a little bit of a curveball when playing against Reynor. You mentioned Blue Flame, I've seen him do that before. Are we kind of expecting that, or are we kind of thinking, no, he's just going to go for a standard 2-3 tank push? This map is very good with it, especially if those rocks stay alive. Like on a map like Romanticide, what is there? What is there in his toolbox that he could kind of employ here?
I personally, with what I experienced so far from HeRoMaRinE, if I had to guess, the build order that he would choose is like 3cc Viking and then still just try to go for a macro game from there. Because Reynor has opened with Overlord speed in game 1, and considering how convincing that was, I would feel like the logical conclusion would be for him to go Overlord speed again. So I would try to outgreed him rather than going for anything aggressive. And I think HeRoMaRinE's logic works very similar to the way I think, so I'm not too surprised to see the 3rd CC started and the starport, and I honestly wouldn't even be too surprised to see a Viking as well, which is more of a greedy opener, right? But good against Overlord speed.
Yeah, the German schooling system there really doing a number on your guys' logic. It's fantastic to hear. All right, we have 30cc coming down indeed. Tech Lab could potentially be Banshee, right? Viking or Banshee, still both possible. So we see Reynor getting ready for that big fat Overlord sacrifice.
Yeah, Reynor not going for Overlord speed again, so also is mixing it up, which is really cool to see. HeRoMaRinE is swapping the starport, so he is going for the Banshee, as you said, one of the very, very standard openers. And I see you are looking at that Overlord very nicely.
Yeah, okay, well, I usually never play with the ultra graphics, and now every unit actually has some detail, rather just having smooth edges everywhere. It's crazy to watch. Earlier, the Spine Crawler absolutely fascinated me, and now this Overlord, you can see his little face, and it just makes me happy, the amount of detail that went into the making of this game for people that actually had computers capable of running it. So it's just great to watch. I'm having a blast, man.
Imagine getting a great PC from Team Liquid and then using the lowest possible graphic settings for your old game. What a waste. What a waste.
It's life, you know. Okay, we got 6 cars on the way. 6 cars out already. 2 more on the way. We'll be going up to 8 cars. We see that front wall here coming out of HeRoMaRinE as he's gonna get bopped by this single link. Too fast, as the depot race was slightly too slow. Now, of course, we're going to have the 2 barracks being added after the 8 cars. And we see Cloak being very close to finishing up. Did Reynor get a full scout behind the mineral line? I don't think so, not with the Ling, right? So, in theory, it's still possible that this is some weird Hellbat attack. I've seen Cure actually play that exact build on this map a couple of times, where you play 3cc, get 10, 12 cars, and then go with 2 Banshees. That doesn't seem to be the case here. We see no Banshees whatsoever here, but 9 Queens. I'm pretty sure that Reynor would have been fine.
Yeah, Reynor going 9 Queen every game is not probably the player that you want to do the delayed helmet attacks with. Because he also has, he saves up for transfuse energy and he's always super active, so he realizes, man, he even gets some Marines here for free, he keeps the Hellions at home, and now he also sees the Hellion count. So yeah, good play by Reynor overall, who this game went for a little bit later of a lair, so he needs to make sure that he has a spore at that fort base, whichever one he decides to take.
Yeah, we see double spore in the third base, double spore in the natural, single spore in the main base. So the cars actually start moving in. Where's the Lynx? The Lynx are dead.
The Lynx just died on the other side of the map, and Gabe thought, you know, the Lynx are dead, so let's just try to run across the map and do some damage. And Reynor is handling it decently with saving half of his drones around, but still 14 drone losses is not something you want to see. The thing is, he is also catching all the Hellions, so it is not the worst thing ever, but at the same time, obviously none of the Cryptomus were spread the way it's usually happening, and now he's actually behind in workers against a Terran that opened with a triple CC. So this is the first non-smooth early game from Reynor.
Yeah, not smooth at all, and on top of that, these rocks are still alive, so the follow-up tank push might actually be able to do something if Reynor doesn't start getting to work on those soon. I love that these 2 Banshees are still being used to clear creeps on the ends, occupying not only the Queens but also the mind of Reynor a little bit here, as we see a very ballsy move out here coming out of HeRoMaRinE. Now, of course, it's less ballsy because he knows he just cleared a crap ton of drones, and it's very unlikely that Reynor starts producing pure Ling of 55 workers, but I still kind of like it. I like it. Slight risk moves out a bit before the Medivacs are there. Combat shield not done yet, +1. Actually, 1-1 is about to finish up. This Overlord is going to die, and can he hold this fort base, Lambo? I have my doubts.
Yeah, and I think for a reason. Now, Reynor's upgrades will finish, but his bending speed is very late. As I said before, the lair was not as early as it usually is. However, this many Queens alone almost can hold the Marines, because the tank obviously doesn't want to go away from the low ground to be safe against the Ling flanks. So the tank doesn't actually shoot at the Queens whenever the Marines stem forward. So overall, he is safe. I don't think he's gonna die, but I still think that HeRoMaRinE is in a very decent position.
Yeah, and once that second tank actually enters this zone as well, we might have a tank on the high ground, one on the low ground, and with combat shield finishing up, with those 1-1 upgrades, I mean, Queens are great in the early game when none of these upgrades are here, but right now you see HeRoMaRinE already getting a little bit more ballsy with those Marines as he realizes, hey, I can kind of semi-trade with this, and now with these next 2 Medivacs arriving, Reynor actually needs to start thinking about breaking this position, because you can't just let this stay. There's not that much creep here at the fort. These Queens are losing transfuse after transfuse. There's no Banelings in the back, by the way. This is pure Zergling.
Reynor is actually making the call to sacrifice the space, which you never want to do with Ling Bane, simply because also you lose a bunch of your production. So he wants to go for the big counterattack. On Romanticide though, you are always fully walled off. So you need Banelings for the counterattack, and this is way too late. Like, he realizes that there hasn't been any reinforcements. I would be very surprised if he actually runs in, even if he tries to kill the wall. Now, the one thing that is kind of funny here is that the HeRoMaRinE actually has his E-base in the wall. So if those die, that would be huge.
Is that worth throwing in, like, what is it, 12 Banelings or so?
No. But if there were less units at home,
okay,
I don't think 12 Banelings kill an eBay either, but
15.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it would be really good, especially 2-2 against 1-1 is a huge difference in Ling Bane versus Marine tank fight.
All right. We have more Ling Bane coming on the map. He's going to be able to surround this army. Actually, Gabe kind of getting caught out of position there. Can he lift up? He can lift up at least some of the Marines, but reinforcements will never reach those Medivacs, which sucks, because I think he had a very powerful timing lined up. Now straight up boost into the main base here of Reynor, but Reynor just a little bit too quick for that. There's bot there. This is 3 spores.
Those are the Banshee spores that he rerouted, because the Banshees, obviously one of them died, the other one is with 1 HP just waiting to spot for counterattacks, and yeah, HeRoMaRinE did not get in there, and Reynor really needed that trade. We see he's still behind in supply, but he now also is starting to get his hive tech down because he managed to take that trade. Now, good cancel here again by HeRoMaRinE on that new 5th base attempt from Reynor.
Yeah, okay, here comes the pickup. Ready in time. Still pure Ling Bane. No sign of Hydra then. Am I right? Yes, no sign of a Hydra then. No sign of a Lurker then either then. And these tank positions, by the way, are really, really cool. He left 3 Marines behind that top tank for a long time as well. Reynor once again moving out for a big counterattack. I mean, this should never work with how conservative HeRoMaRinE has been with his reinforcements.
Yeah, HeRoMaRinE has not just moved his entire army across ever since he got surrounded in the middle of the map there. So he has a lot of units at home always ready, and this is one of those games where you don't really want to go into Lurkers since your opponent already has a lot of tanks and you didn't kill a lot of tanks yet either, so I'm expecting an Ultralist down here. To be honest, HeRoMaRinE actually pushing forward with a small margin of his army, and he's losing a lot of tanks for, well, not entirely free, but still a very, very good trade for Reynor in the middle of the map again.
Yeah, definitely, as the Queens are trading energy with the Medevacs here, as the Medevacs seem to run out a little bit faster than the Queens do. HeRoMaRinE still up in supply. Creep, for the first time in the entirety of all of the ZVT games we've seen from Reynor, is looking extremely weak, and largely due to the credit of HeRoMaRinE constantly denying that creep. How many creep tumors have fallen so far? 32 have gone down. This push out is actually starting to look kind of scary. We still have these tanks on the top side, ensuring that this base that ideally Reynor has as a fort right now won't be able to be taken. HeRoMaRinE is just moving forward, and the rocks are still up as well. Reynor hasn't had the time yet to clear these. I think HeRoMaRinE might be doing it here, Lambo.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this army is still not that great against pure Ling Bane, but Reynor is running into problems with spending his money already for the past minutes because he kept losing hatcheries, and he didn't go for any macro hatcheries, which, I mean, Dark has 3 macro hatcheries with his style for a reason. And now he finally does go for the straight engage. I still do believe that he should be able to clear this up, but with good splits, it should at least be a decent fight for him.
Not quite sure if that was what we would consider a completely decent fight. It actually felt like initially the start of the fight wasn't too great for Reynor, but then I'm not quite sure what happened there, Lambo, but I felt like that was supposed to look a little bit better for HeRoMaRinE.
Well, his army is not good against Ling Bane, as I said before. Like, he has a tank, Marine, Marauder, and it's not all bunched together. So I think all he really needs is to keep the trades better for him. I do believe, even though that looks a little bit bad, it was still like an even fight, which is fine if you're ahead and if you're starving out the Zerg. So as long as he keeps up the pressure and he keeps denying the creep, I think if we take that into consideration, it was a little bit better than it maybe looked.
Okay, fair play. And what should HeRoMaRinE be thinking of? Do we want to add a couple of mines here? Is the transition into Ghost coming anytime soon, now that Ultras are out? Or is he more of a guy that likes to stick with Siege Tank, Liberator, and these big Marine Marauder counts?
I think in theory mines are great against this, but hold that thought, as Reynor is engaging into the left army and the planetary at the same time. He does not have enough banelings on his right side to clear the planetary, but he's taking a decent enough fight on the left. Now, once again, we see a very Marauder heavy army here against a very Ling Bane centered army, so Reynor has the advantage of being able to take fights off creep as well, which he's abusing, but those 2 tanks are still there since the beginning of the game, and they have... yeah, they have been extremely valuable.
Yeah, even though they don't have too many kills, just the fact that they've been constantly zoning there and getting their occasional shot off has been great. Meanwhile, a fight happening here on the bottom side of the map. This game is constant action, as HeRoMaRinE is really on a very high pace. This is high tempo play coming out of HeRoMaRinE. Constantly drops being queued up. We see double Liberator heading into... well, this is supposed to be a 6 base, but it's only the 5th here for Reynor. 2 parasitic bombs are going to be going down. We see finally both of these tanks get cleaned up. Oh, HeRoMaRinE did a fantastic job cleaning almost all the creep except this single tumor here, which is still alive. And this is the little tumor that is going to keep going forward. And that's actually going to be very helpful there for Reynor. That single tumor is going to ensure that he at least has some vision in the middle of the map and that he can push HeRoMaRinE away from those rocks if he decides to go there.
Mm-hmm. I would love to see HeRoMaRinE try to move more of his army towards the top side. Instead, now he's trying to defend his base, and Reynor is just attacking upper ramp even without the Vipers. I'm not sure if I'm the biggest fan of that. He does disengage and engages at the right side at the same time, but he loses his 6th base again. He does need to find new expansions very soon, Reynor, that is, because of how many drones he has. Those simply won't be mining efficiently at all later on. But a very, very good counterattack at the same time, clearing up HeRoMaRine's 5th base, so he knocks him back down to 5 bases.
Yeah, we see the income heavily in favor of Reynor right now, but as you mentioned, these bases are starting to run dry. It won't be too long until that fourth base still has some mineral patches, but soon also will only be on 4. The only healthy base is that bottom base, which I guess is the 7 o'clock kind of. Queen count also has been low for a while now, so new creep tumors haven't been added. Which is kind of a big deal when you're working with an army that tends to be so reliant on fighting on creep. I mean, Ultra Ling Bane is really an army that requires creep, right?
Yeah, for sure. And HeRoMaRinE is now adding drilling class, which I think is very funny. I think HeRoMaRinE at any moment is expecting a lurker transition, simply because he's playing against Reynor, so that's why he's going Ghost, Tank, Marauder, but that actually enables Reynor to retake his expansions. If HeRoMaRinE stayed on a lower tech army, or started transitioning into mines earlier, he could have denied the basic. Reynor again takes out another base, and HeRoMaRinE not fast enough with the snipes here. I think he could have taken out those ultras if he was quick. But at the same time, he sees Reynor moving into his new 5th base with the forward sensor tower, and again is slightly out of position, but is coming in time. Oh, the Vipers need to watch out.
Yeah, I was afraid there was going to be a couple of snipes there. 10 more SCVs go down. Is the lift quick enough? No, HeRoMaRinE doesn't lift the orbital command, and that's kind of the use of the orbitals, that you can lift it. Reynor, after having an atrocious start, may we say, is slowly but surely clawing his way back into the game right now, up in income for the past 2 minutes or so. He's getting a very solid army out, adding infestors into it as well. And we see HeRoMaRinE actually, as you mentioned, just not having the correct composition for a long time. Now finally these mines are being added. Still 24 Marauders against a mainly Zergling army. He might just be lacking the DPS to deal with those.
Yeah, however, tanks are very good on this map, especially in the position where HeRoMaRinE is now. The one thing that I would have loved to see is him trying to keep denying the top bases, because that's kind of his winning condition, whereas because of all the action that has happened on HeRoMaRiNE's side, where HeRoMaRiNE kept running left, right with his entire army instead of splitting it up, Reynor managed to establish both of those bases, which means his mineral income will remain very consistent at a very high rate. So, yeah, very, very good moves by Reynor, and he really needed those as well to keep himself in the game.
Yeah, man, the tempo of this game has been absolutely insane. Constant drops. As you mentioned, HeRoMaRiNE should be trying to deny these top bases. We saw a medevac heading there, actually doing some nice damage, killing a couple of workers. Now, Reynor actually has a big enough bank at this point, and this is the first time in this game where he's actually working with a bank, that he can replace those drones very easily. He has Larva ready. He can actually kind of remax at this point. We see HeRoMaRiNE move into this bottom, the 7 o'clock base, but Banelings are in position. He will split and try to tank those. Reynor realizes, wait, that won't be cost efficient, especially not with freaking 95 medevacs flying over these 4 Marauders. And he decides to back off, at least temporarily. He's gonna need some Zerglings to clean this up, it feels like.
Yeah, but the more HeRoMaRiNE commits towards the left side of the map, the more open he is to counterattacks as well. And Reynor does not really need to hold these bases, because if you count the HeRoMaRiNE base count right now, it's 5, and Reynor already mined out a part of the left side map. So if Reynor migrates his workers towards the bottom, wow, HeRoMaRiNE scans forward, sees there is no overseer, but finally also tested. Yeah.
Actually starts targeting a lot of the overseers here. If he gets those ghosts could be useful, but no, they're not split up. The Banelings will just accidentally take them out as they're dying. This fight's still looking very good for HeRoMaRiNE though.
Yeah, it was a really clutch decision actually to cloak the ghost and snipe the overseers. And Reynor was out of infestor energy now, so he couldn't fungal those ghosts anymore. Nice counterattack at the same time with the Zerglings, but there are not that many SCVs here. And I said he can sacrifice the space, but he sacrificed the base while also losing a lot of workers. So now his bank that he's been working with has been mostly depleted. So at this point, Reynor really needs to watch out to start trading a little bit more effective.
Yeah, he definitely needs to, as you say. He still is going to be mining off of approximately 2.5 base, but that's simply just not going to be enough. Once HeRoMaRiNE manages to establish one extra base, his income will skyrocket. A little bit of an engagement here in the middle of the map. Snipes going down on the Viper, snipes on the Ultra as well. Is there a HeRoMaRiNE? Yes, quick burrow there. Tank in the back, tanks in the back. Oh my god, more tanks running in. Liberators joining as well. And Reynor needs to GG as he loses his first map against a Terran. And HeRoMaRiNE kind of felt like he was losing control of that game, but then his late game looks fantastic. Now, of course, Romancide can be tricky for Zerg if you don't get that creep spread up, if you don't have that map control, but this was very well played by the German Terran player.
Very, very well played, actually. But we do need to remember that this also started with the Hellions of a 3cc opener killing, was it 18 or so as drones? So he definitely played from ahead, and he made all the right moves from that position. So props to him. But the question is, will Reynor let that happen again? Like, he sacrificed his links and then didn't remake them, which is a mistake that I'm pretty sure doesn't happen too often to him. So
Yeah.
um, that game probably looks very different from
Yeah.
if the start is different as well.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, impressive nonetheless, right? It's
Absolutely.
usually you're always gonna make mistakes. I mean, we've been saying how good Reynor's early game has been, but eventually something's gonna slip through the cracks, and at that point, it's really well, for a lot of people, it's still very difficult to beat Reynor in that case. We saw Dream get in a good position in game number 2 as well, but he didn't manage to leverage that win as well as HeRoMaRinE did. With that constant pressure, man, those two tanks on the top side were absolute MVPs at denying that forward base. Like, even if they're not actively shooting that forward base, they're zoning that area where then the Marines can just continuously be at. And just having Marines there is super uncomfortable for Reynor. Once he lost his queens and didn't rebuild them, his creep was basically gone for the entirety of the game. And honestly, at the end, it kind of felt like he had it again, right? He had a bank, he had everything, but just one bad engagement, a clutch decision there to snipe the overseers, and HeRoMaRinE takes game number 2, and we're heading into game number 3. Don't forget, this is currently, I still find it difficult to believe, this is currently for the first place in the group, as both HeRoMaRinE and Reynor are 2-0 in series, both beating out Trap, who to a lot of people was the favorite in this group. So yeah, it's
even in the tournament for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, he has been performing extremely well. Not having him in your top 3, I think you'd just be a bit of an idiot. So yeah, I mean, really, he's just been having, I mean, the past 6 months have been Trap's months. Now, here we are, Lambo. Game number 3. We are on Pillars of Gold. And in the bottom left corner, spawning as the Red Terran, playing for Team Mouse, it's going to be HeRoMaRinE.
And his opponent, who can sometimes still, let's hope his mental stays strong for this one, it is the Italian Zerg player, Reynor.
Yes. Reynor as the blue Zerg, HeRoMaRinE as the Red Terran player. Now, are we going to see some massive changes in Reynor's play? I would argue no. He is someone that likes to approach matchups in a systematic way, and once he finds a mistake, he tries to iron it out in that way as well. It's not like he will be like, oh crap, I lost to a Hellion run by and I lost some links, let me just open roaches for the next 12 games, right? He's someone that enjoys doing similar things and then having multiple paths forward from that opener. But his opener, he likes to keep that relatively similar.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I think that would be the same for every player if you can pinpoint the mistake that led to your position that easily. I would be very surprised if anyone figured after these 2 games that, yeah, he's losing because he doesn't like his Ling main style, for example, as you said. Like, there's no reason to switch it up to roaches. And instead just figuring out how to not do the same mistake again. I also wouldn't mind seeing another Overlord speed or something that, in general, something that players are very confident already going into a series. So I think that also goes to show what Reynor really expects here in this matchup.
Yes. And I want to come back to it once again. This match is important. Not only will it kind of ensure that most likely you will make it out of your group, right? If you win this match, either as Reynor or HeRoMaRinE, it's very unlikely to not make it out with 3-2, even though it is possible. But on top of that, the moment you lose this, you don't have your faith in your own hands anymore when it comes to getting first place in the group and straight up advancing to that round of 8, which yesterday we saw Dark do. And on the first day, I'm blanking again, Lambo. Gonna need to help you out.
On the first day, it was a Terran TY, I think.
TY, alright.
TY Maru, same score, but TY beat Maru.
Perfect, yeah. So you joined TY and Dark in that round of 8 already. Now, of course, winning that match doesn't guarantee that, but it just ensures that you still have your fate in your own hands, which is something that most people like. We have Queen popping out and opening up with a Reaper once again is HeRoMaRinE. Look at him, man. He's super active with this Reaper. He's feeling it today. His control is on point. The micro has been very good. And honestly, HeRoMaRinE has always been good in these more turtly situations, right? Like kind of like we saw that last game. Solid positioning, very good decision making, completely in control of the pace of the game. That's how he likes to play. That's his favorite position. If the early game isn't as good and he feels pressured to be out on the map, usually the games go a little bit worse for him.
Yeah, I agree. I would say the two biggest strengths of HeRoMaRinE are, one, his macro is very, very smooth, and the second one is he is really good at setting up fights. So not necessarily the flashiest micro during the fights, but he has really good pre-splits. He knows how to position his army, and he knows what to do in the fight to make it go his way. So he might not be the flashiest Terran player, but he's one of the most solid ones, especially in Europe. And this game, he is actually mixing it up and going for the blue flame. So that's why I also said I would have loved to see Overlord speed again. Reynor figured he will get the scouting done with the Overlord. Now, I'm not sure if that Overlord will get far enough to see the factories, but I reckon it would.
I'd agree with that. Overlords. The second Marine actually is a little bit slow with joining up. I think if that one was here a bit earlier, it won't get the scout off. But right now, Reynor sees it. What is the response here? Do you go into Roaches? Do you go into Banelings? Do you just keep adding more Queens and Spines? What do we do here, Lambo?
You can either go into Roaches or into a Bailing Nest, and HeRoMaRinE is swapping it up right away. This was basically, he got scouted and he's like, okay, this was just a fake. Let me just open with a normal bio opener now, and this is not too expensive. It's basically as if you made a starport and you didn't use it, more or less. Whereas Reynor actually went for the Bailing Nest response, so this is good for Reynor. Definitely very good for Reynor, because if he went for the Roach response, which is actually a more or less a free win if the Terran plays the Blue Flame opener into bio, where you can do a 1-1 Roach timing, and the Terran is going to have 0-0 Marines, and very little Marines, because the production gets added so late. Whereas with what HeRoMaRinE is doing right now, he can have a lot of tanks ready, and also a lot of Marines, compared to the way it usually looks.
Right. Double Evo going down as well. Here we see a Spine coming up on the third base here for Reynor, who's not messing around when it comes to his defense. Now, of course, you could say, well, he's seeing no extra cars. Why doesn't he just realize? Because very often with this build, Terrans will save up cars in the main base just to kind of trick the opponent. That would be a little bit weird to do if you already got scouted, but you'd rather be safe than sorry. And if you lose in such a silly way in game number 3 of such an important game, you're gonna hit yourself on the head a couple of times. See the fourth base going down here for Reynor, who is on 60 workers already and really has kind of survived with no losses. I was gonna say minimal losses, but I mean actually no worker kills whatsoever here for HeRoMaRinE. So Reynor gonna be feeling pretty confident moving into that mid game right now.
And HeRoMaRinE is even taking the backwards third base. So I'm pretty sure HeRoMaRinE is afraid that Reynor's response to this would have been a 1-1 Roach bust. But that's just not the case at all. As HeRoMaRinE is producing double tank, yeah. HeRoMaRinE was blind countering the response that I told you was a free win against this build. So Reynor got very, very fortunate here that he didn't decide to do that. I sure as hell would have, and I would have gotten stomped by like 6 tanks expecting me, and also the better setup third base.
Yeah. What is the move then here for HeRoMaRinE from this point on? You say this isn't great. He's getting double tank against pure Ling Bane. Is there any transition on the horizon, or will he have to kind of stick with his guns for now?
I mean, he is very committed on this tech right now, as it also delays all of his extra barracks for quite a bit, but I cannot imagine he can do anything against Ling Bane with very low marine numbers and very high tank numbers. That's just not how it works. So maybe he will need to go into a more of a passive game. Maybe we could see a single tank push, but I don't think the constant aggression that we saw last game would be something that is possible with this opener.
It's something like you can't really go into 8 racks off of this, right? That's not going to be possible.
No, you can't afford that either, right? It has to be 5 racks, and then most likely we're going to see a 4th CC.
1-1 is about to finish up here for HeRoMaRinE. Splits his Hellions away from the Marines as he picks up the Marines. Nice little maneuver there. He's controlling his units well. Supply is still looking very close as well. What's on the way here for... We're going to be seeing lurkers this game, right? I would be surprised to not see any lurkers.
I would prefer to see ultras against this. You usually do not want to go into lurkers against a guy that already is producing double siege tank, double factory. That's kind of the counter that he has already, and ultras are really good against tanks. Now, last game he lost against the tanks with ultras, but that was not because tanks are great against Link Main Ultra. It's more so that he just got into a good position. One of the things that actually Reynor made a mistake in this game is that he forgot his second evolution chamber to upgrade the +1 melee. So he's gonna be down 1 upgrade even if he starts the 2-1. Once he realizes that +2 has to be started. And now one thing that's really good for Reynor is that he has a massive flank ready for this. It's a little bit mistimed, but the tanks are very, very exposed as he engages now at the same time with the queens. Banelings run in, and this is why Ling Bane Queen is so good against the tank pushes.
Yeah, complete cleanup. Reminiscent of the game number 1 that got played on Lightshade. As we see +2 has started here for HeRoMaRinE, so it's going to be in a lead in that, but he doesn't have a fort base yet. This seems extremely committed here out of HeRoMaRinE as he keeps rallying straight across the map, making himself very vulnerable for run-bys as well. So it's important that if he wants to do this, that he keeps showing his face again and again, just to ensure that Reynor doesn't get some kind of counter-attack going, because what is there really to deal with it? There's 5 Marines right now. That isn't enough against the counter-attacks that we've seen so far today out of Reynor. Yeah,
he even made a sensor tower with a 3-base attack, which is really uncommon. Just respecting the link counters from Reynor. Reynor obviously knows where the sensor tower is because you also see it on the minimap as a Zerg, so he's just going to run straight into the natural and try to intercept reinforcements instead of going towards the 3rd base around the right side.
Okay, HeRoMaRinE spots the run by right now. This tank is going to fall. The depots get raised as these banelings don't get the connection that they want, but overall delays the push out a little bit. Oh, and gets the free cleanup here with the tanks. HeRoMaRinE forgetting he had tanks there, sent everything back in a big F2 motion, manages to save 1 tank, and actually at the end of that, maybe not the worst trade. However, this run by wasn't done yet, and HeRoMaRinE just kind of F2s back again. He catches himself.
Yeah, this was decent for HeRoMaRinE trading-wise, but he can't afford to lose tanks like that because this is only splash damage and he doesn't have Marauders as he did in the last game. So Banelings, whenever they connect, they will be very effective. Now, these trades were actually pretty decent for HeRoMaRinE. He had really good focus fire on the siege tanks, so it's looking closer in the supply than it actually, I think, or it looks better for HeRoMaRinE in the supply than it actually is because we have a very massive Baneling amount. The one thing that I really would love to see is a macro hedge with this style from Reynor, because he is actually struggling to spend his extra minerals, once again run-buying now.
Yeah, we have a couple of Marines moving forward. There's not that many tanks with this push, as you mentioned. The only splash that HeRoMaRinE currently has, and it is not in too big a numbers there. However, the creep is also practically non-existent. These queens are having difficulty staying alive. We still have 9 queens here, though. And this time we see, oh my god, HeRoMaRinE is actually finding the big Baneling morph. This is a big deal.
Yeah, this is a big deal because Reynor needed that to clear up this position. Now he needs to sacrifice the base. Now this again is not that bad because there are 2 hatcheries on the other side of the map that he can take, but this push won't slow down anytime soon, and it still threatens the initial 3rd base that Reynor took because there's just not that much creep ahead of the base. What the thing that we were praising Reynor for the entirety of the series against Dream is now the one thing that he didn't do perfectly this game, which is the creep spread. I feel like he's feeling the pressure a little bit now, again going for a massive run by, but HeRoMaRinE has a lot of units. There are no medevacs with this, so maybe Reynor will still try to engage, and that looks like a decent trade for the Zerg.
Yeah, Zerg getting a lot of damage in. This SCV split was a little bit late, but once HeRoMaRinE gets going, he does it all right. I guess 9 workers do end up going down. This is kind of what Reynor needed. He needed some damage. He needed to stop this fast reinforcements. Very lucky that none of these tanks were sieged. If just one of these tanks is sieged, that fight is completely different.
He is actually making Hydras, which he doesn't want right now, but it's only because he's lacking larva. He literally just is making Hydras because it's more larva efficient than making Zerglings. So he's going into the Lurker, as you actually rightly pointed out, which I'm a little bit surprised by because I think Ultras would be better in this scenario, but once again going for a massive counterattack, and HeRoMaRinE just rallied all his units across.
Yeah. That's okay, Lambo. One day you will be able to make these calls as well. As we do indeed have another big pure link counterattack. But as the depots get raised, Reynor decides not to go. Double Liberator harass is being shift queued up, and at least one of them is going to straight up go into this spore, which is one of my favorite sights to see when these get shift clicked. And boom, I think both of them will be in range of that spore. Actually, let's see how fast Reynor responds. We'll lose at least 4. Oh, HeRoMaRinE responds Not great. Meanwhile, a fight in the middle of the map. Reynor actually a little bit slow there. Very uncharacteristic. Reynor is extremely fast usually with his run-bys, which kind of stems from him always being a massive Link player when he was younger as well, and still a little bit worse, right? He loved just messing Links again and again, and I think that's the one thing that definitely carried over the years. Now we have 9 lurkers on the way. Do we have seismic spines? We don't.
I don't like this lurker move at all, because these lurkers do not have the burrow upgrade, nor do they have the range yet, and he just needs to clean up this army with one big go. HeRoMaRinE just reinforces with everything, so he has the maximum amount of units at the front right now. Reynor is trying to clear this up slowly with the Viper abducts, which is fine, I guess, but he needs to hold the position. So if HeRoMaRinE sieges forward right now when there's no Viper energy, it's going to be very hard for him to hold.
Yeah. HeRoMaRinE still on 4 bases only. His 5th base is building right now. These tanks are slowly but surely getting pulled in, man. This Viper is laughing in the face of danger. He's just standing there, don't worry guys, I'll just take out this extractor while the Marines are underneath me. Lurker gets sniped by pure Marine, something you don't see very often. Here comes the Ling, Hydra, Baneling will be able to finally clean up this position, and that was very, very necessary, because Reynor simply can't afford to lose a mining base. At this stage of the game, he's on a very low draw count, Lambo.
He is on a very low drone count, but HeRoMaRinE is mining out on his first 3 bases, and he only has a 4th base. He's making a 5th base right now, close to his 3rd command center, but Reynor has 2 fresh bases on the left side, so the moment he actually survives and he can start extra upgrades, it should still be fine for him. The problem is, HeRoMaRinE started this game with 2 factory, and he went into 3 factory from 5 barracks, so lurkers are not the greatest once the Viper energy runs out, especially. But at the same time, HeRoMaRinE doesn't have the gas to make the Ghost transition. Instead, he's just trying to get out as many tanks as possible, possibly too many tanks to deal with the Vipers. That might be his idea here, trying to intercept the run by getting a bunch of links for free once again.
Yeah, that high ground sensor tower doing a lot of work there, actually helping him out so much. Not sieged yet in this case, and it's gonna take a little bit of damage in this engagement. Banelings will not end up connecting with those final Marines. They do get some decent connections. All the tanks will get cleaned up as well, as Reynor's bank increases slightly in size, and HeRoMaRinE supply drops just that tiny bit. Now, the one thing I'm worried about here for HeRoMaRinE is the fact that his mining has been pretty low the entire game, and because of that we see almost no orbital commands.
Yeah, absolutely. He didn't have the money to add extra orbitals. Hell, you didn't even have money to add the extra 3 barracks until just now, so he was playing it very, very tight. Obviously super clean macro, never floating money, but he keeps losing tanks right now away from positions that threaten Reynor's economy, which is really bad, because that means every single fight Reynor can come back, regain the Viper energy, and then engage once he has the energy once again. And I think this is what we're seeing here. Parasitic Bomb used on one of the medevacs, he even abducts 2 of the other ones to secure 3 kills. So very, very good moves by Reynor, who now also started his +3 and his +2 missile. And I think if Reynor survives a little bit longer and gets into his late game, he should feel in a very comfortable position.
Oh, 5 lurkers here being cut out a little bit. Yeah, Seismic Spine is also finally starting. I feel like Reynor's had lurkers for almost 2 minutes now, and the range on these is pathetic. I guess he couldn't shoot because of no high ground vision, but yeah. But still, the range is pathetic, Lambo. My point still stands, as they managed to rotate straight into this little army over here. Vipers coming in clutch with a couple of blinding clouds, and actually gets a decent trade out of this. It's ridiculous. It felt like HeRoMaRinE was like, aha, now I caught you, but it was actually Reynor who called HeRoMaRinE there, as the trades have been going better and better for Reynor. Down 7k in units lost, but his eco has been just better the entirety of this game.
I'm very afraid for HeRoMaRinE with this army in the bottom. He has so little Marines here that I feel like at any moment, if Reynor has a single blinding cloud or just wants to engage with the Zerglings, it's gonna be almost a game-ending engagement, because he's so tank-heavy, and tanks simply aren't that great against Zerglings without Marine support.
Yeah, this man, I need a bigger zoom out function to catch all the action in this fight. Holy crap. Tanks on the left side cleared up their part, the tanks in the middle didn't, and the tanks on the right are getting destroyed by what felt like almost single links. Scan here out of HeRoMaRinE, C6 lurks. It's like, alright, I'll just kind of ferry this back home in the medevacs. He did manage to finally secure that 5th base 17 minutes into the game. Lurkers on the high ground. When it rains, it pours, Lambo. And these lurkers with the seismic spines will be able to shoot at that planetary on the low ground. Now there's more lurkers heading in towards that planetary at the 5th. I think Reynor is in a fantastic position. Once again, Blinding Cloud hits 2 of these tanks, abducts on all the others, and GG gets called as